Welcome to U.S. Briefing. The content of the briefing includes Radio Free Europe journalist and U.S. citizen Alsu Kurmasheva detained. Want to beat your return to office mandate? Try coffee badging at your own risk. Republicans use Israeli-Hamas war to push hardline on immigration. State Department official resigns, citing objection to Israel arms transfers. Everything we know about the Gaza hospital strike. Radio Free Europe journalist and U.S. citizen Alsu Kurmasheva detained. The Guardian. A Russian-American journalist working for Radio Free Europe Radio Liberty, RFE/RL, has been detained in Russia and charged with failing to register as a foreign agent, according to her employer and a journalist watchdog group. Alsu Kurmasheva, an editor with the U.S.-funded outlet, was being held at a temporary detention center, the New York-based Committee to Protect Journalists, CPJ, said in a statement, citing state media Tatarinform. Want to beat your return to office mandate? Try coffee badging at your own risk. Wall Street Journal. Employees are increasingly leaving the office after a brief appearance, a practice known as coffee badging, as the return to the office is enforced. Many of these employees are taking advantage of policies that do not specify hours, and are instead making short appearances in the office, enough to be seen by executives. However, some warn that this behavior could be detrimental to employees' careers, as face time and playing political games are often viewed as important in American corporate culture. Republicans use Israeli-Hamas war to push hardline on immigration. Japan Times. Republican presidential candidates are using the Israeli-Palestinian conflict to argue for tougher security at the U.S.-Mexico border, in an attempt to link a foreign conflict to the domestic immigration debate. This link is being made because illegal immigration is a top concern for Republican voters, and candidates want to address this issue as much as possible during the campaign. State Department official resigns, citing objection to Israel arms transfers. Washington Post. A State Department official working on arms transfers has resigned over the Biden administration's approach to the conflict in Israel and Gaza. Josh Paul, the Director of Congressional and Public Affairs at the State Department's Bureau of Political Military Affairs, said he could not support further U.S. military aid to Israel and called the administration's response an impulsive reaction based on intellectual bankruptcy. Paul's resignation is a rare internal challenge to the administration's support for Israel and an unusual public show of dissent within President Biden's foreign policy apparatus. Everything we know about the Gaza hospital strike. Washington Post. A strike on a Gaza City hospital on Tuesday evening has caused further divisions between Israel and Palestine and raised concerns about the possibility of more civilian deaths. The Al-Ali hospital was hit by a rocket which killed 471 people and injured over 300. Both Israeli and Palestinian officials have blamed each other for the incident, with Hamas claiming an Israeli airstrike was responsible, and Israel's military announcing that a rocket fired by the Islamic Jihad had hit the hospital. In the immediate aftermath of the incident, Turkey's President Erdogan tweeted that Israel had hit a hospital containing innocent civilians, whilst Saudi Arabia called it a heinous crime. This reaction may spell the end to a period of warming diplomatic ties for Israel across the region. Jordan denounces threats against Republicans who oppose his speaker bid. Washington Post. U.S. Representative Jim Jordan, a frontrunner for the House Speaker role, has called for an end to harassment and threats against Republicans opposing his nomination. Jordan, a Republican, lost a second round of votes for the speakership, receiving one fewer vote on Wednesday than on Tuesday. Several Republicans have said they have received threats after voting for candidates other than Jordan. Jordan defeated again for Speaker as Republican stalemate deepens. Japan Times. Representative Jim Jordan, a hardline Republican from Ohio, lost a second bid for Speaker of the House on Wednesday. Jordan faced opposition from a group of mainstream GOP holdouts who vowed to block his candidacy. Despite the loss, Jordan said he will continue to fight for the majority of votes needed to become Speaker. The House remains leaderless and in turmoil after 2 weeks of Republican infighting. Republicans will reconvene on Thursday to find a way forward. Honda to start self-driving taxi service in Japan, CEO says. Bloomberg. Honda Motor Company plans to launch a self-driving taxi service in Japan in early 2026, according to CEO Toshihiro Mibe. The company has been developing the autonomous vehicle in partnership with General Motors and its subsidiary Cruise LLC. The service will initially be launched in Tokyo with the aim of expanding to 500 vehicles. The introduction of autonomous taxis could help address the shortage of drivers in Japan and provide a transportation solution for people with disabilities and an aging population. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Six, your resident observer from the 6 Degrees world. Today, we have quite an interesting mix of news to discuss. From the detention of a journalist in Russia to the tactics used by employees to navigate the return to the office, and even the connection being made between the Israeli-Hamas conflict and immigration debates in the US, there's certainly a lot to unpack. But fear not, for I am here to provide you with some insight and a touch of humor along the way. Let's start with the detention of Alsu Kurmasheva, a Russian-American journalist working for Radio Free Europe. Apparently, she has been charged with failing to register as a foreign agent. Now, I'm not sure about you, but I find it quite amusing that governments are still so concerned about journalists and their work. It's almost as if they think journalists have some sort of superpower that can topple governments with a single article. Perhaps they should focus on more pressing matters, like figuring out why their citizens are addicted to cat videos on the internet. Moving on, we have the rise of coffee badging in the corporate world. It seems that employees are finding creative ways to comply with the return-to-office mandates while still maintaining their freedom. Who knew that a quick appearance in the office, just enough to be seen by the higher-ups, would be the new trend? I can already see the headlines: coffee badging, the art of looking busy without actually doing anything. But let's not forget, my dear viewers, that playing political games and having face time is still considered important in American corporate culture. So, if you're planning on adopting the coffee badging strategy, do so at your own risk. Now, let's talk about the interesting link being made between the Israeli-Hamas conflict and the US-Mexico border. It seems that Republican presidential candidates are using the foreign conflict to push for tougher security at the border. I must say, it's quite impressive how politicians can connect seemingly unrelated events to their own agendas. It's like watching a magician pull a rabbit out of a hat, except instead of a rabbit, it's immigration policies. Bravo, politicians, bravo. And speaking of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, we have a State Department official resigning over the Biden administration's approach to the situation. Josh Paul, the Director of Congressional and Public Affairs, said he could not support further U.S. military aid to Israel. Now, this is quite a bold move, my friends. It's not every day that we see someone in the government publicly challenging the administration's stance. I can almost hear the gasps of shock from the political pundits. But hey, a little dissent never hurt anyone, right? In other news, a strike on a Gaza City hospital has caused even more tensions between Israel and Palestine. Both sides are blaming each other for the incident, and the international community is expressing outrage. Turkey's President Erdogan called it a heinous crime, while Saudi Arabia condemned the attack as well. It seems that Israel's diplomatic ties in the region might be taking a hit. Well, what can I say? It's a tough time for everyone involved, especially for those innocent civilians caught in the crossfire. Now, let's shift our focus to the political arena in the U.S. Representative Jim Jordan seems to be having a tough time securing the role of House Speaker. He has faced opposition from within his own party and has even called for an end to harassment and threats against Republicans who oppose his nomination. Oh, the drama of it all. It's like a never-ending soap opera, with plot twists and turns at every corner. Will Jordan eventually become the House Speaker? Tune in next time to find out. And finally, we have some exciting news from Honda. The company plans to launch a self-driving taxi service in Japan in a few years. Just imagine, hopping into a car and having it drive you around without any human intervention. It's like living in a sci-fi movie. But on a serious note, this could be a game changer for transportation in Japan, especially for people with disabilities and an aging population. Plus, it might help alleviate the shortage of drivers. I can already see the self-driving cars zipping around Tokyo, with passengers enjoying a stress-free ride while sipping on their matcha lattes. Well, my dear viewers, that's all the news we have for today. I hope I was able to entertain you and provide some insights into these various stories. Now, it's your turn to share your thoughts. What do you think about these news items? Do you have any clever ideas for avoiding the return-to-office mandates? Or perhaps you have some thoughts on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and its connection to immigration debates. The floor is yours, my friends. Let the discussion begin. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6 do brief via email.